Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the LG 3D Cinema GSL Super Tournament. I am Wolf, and with me, got 2 empty seats, or 2 empty spaces for seats, but there's no one there. But that's okay, because today I'm ready to commentate for you guys. I'm ready to be here alone and casting this cord on my back. It's like jerking my mic around, but that's okay. So sorry about that interview issue. We had some audio problems, but they're all sorted out now. So everything is great and fine. The next match we've got coming up here is going to be TricKsteR versus TheBest. I'll give you guys some stats, actually. The first map is Crossfire. Now, 41.6% wins for TricKsteR in PvT, so his PvT not that strong. You know, he has lost in the past a lot to Terrans, especially in the open seasons. He was losing quite a bit. His opponent, though, has only a 33.3 repeating percent chance, or 33.3% win percentage against Protosses. So neither of these players playing their best matchup, so we could see some funky games here. We could see some, I don't want to say one of those games where you saw in like Code A back in the first Code A season where players were just really bad and they were just kind of tripping over it themselves the entire game. It's not going to be like that. But neither of these players, it's their best matchup, so we're not going to see a crushing victory one way or the other. Most likely, it's going to be a pretty close game. So we're going to take a look at our players. Here's TSL TricKsteR now. He's been in the GSL for a long time. He actually was in the open seasons as well. They aren't listed here, but was in Code S all the way from the beginning back in January. Made it to the round of 8 in that tournament, and then of course in March he made it to the round of 16. May didn't do that well, was in Code S and made it to the round of 32, but didn't fall down, stayed in Code S, so he's in Code S currently for July, the upcoming season. Now he did defeat Slayer's Yu-Gi-Oh! 2-0 in the round of 64 for the Super Tournament, so that's how he got here. Check out that TSL shirt. They've got actually patches on their shirt. That's pretty cool. The sponsors. And I talked to him just a little bit before, right before the first cast started, and he seemed pretty confident, pretty comfortable, pretty pleased with how the games are going to go today. Didn't feel nervous at all. At least he didn't seem nervous. He might be hiding it. Some people can hide their nervosity really well. And next up, we've got TheBest Foyu. He's been in the GSL for a while as well. And he's been in Code S for 2 seasons, but did recently drop down to Code A. And in fact, lost his first match in Code A, so he's actually currently in Code B. So, a little unfortunate for TheBest. And he's another one of those players like Juke2, who, you know, he doesn't have a spot earned for himself in the GSL. He's got to requalify to make it back in. Did defeat June, or June. A lot of people call him June, a lot of people call him different names. But he did defeat ZX June 2-0 to make it here to the round of 32, the Super Tournament. There's a shot of him now in his shiny white Foyu jacket. I love the Foyu jackets, they're so cool. He looks pretty pleased right now. He actually looks like he's in a good mood, which is always important. You got to be in the right mindset when you're playing one of these big tournaments. Because if you're nervous, you choke, you forget your first pylon or something like that, and things get really bad really quick. So we're going to see some more stats from these guys. Part of it cut off on my screen, like I said before, but versus Terran, it actually looks like I was incorrect. He's at 50% wins. He's got a 47.6% win ratio overall in the GSL recently in the last 10 games. So we're actually, that's a lot more than 10 games. I take that back. The last 2 wins. My producer's telling me all these things. I'm like echoing what he's saying. All right, so you can see he's done pretty well here recently. And of course, the last 2 wins were against Yu-Gi-Oh! In the Super Tournament. He beat San as well recently. And if you look at TheBest, you can see that he hasn't done quite as well here. He beat June recently, but lost to Min, lost to Supernova, Alive, and Top recently, so his recent results overall have not been very good. And yeah, that's pretty notable, and like I said, he's out of Code A, so that's because he hasn't been doing very well recently. If you start having a huge slump like that, you're going to eventually fall out and disappear. So the first map is Crossfire, the second map will be Xel'Naga Caverns, the third map, Dual Sight. Interesting that TricKsteR eliminated Crevasse, because I think that's a really good map for Protoss in this matchup, because you can expand early. There's not really a good way of Terran to put pressure on and stop you from doing that. And there's a lot of cool timing pushes you can do on the map. And in addition to that, there's a ton of huge open spaces, and that's where Zealots and Storms and Colossi really do their best in those big open spaces. Well, Colossi not so much, but the other units do. In those big open spaces where they can really utilize their attacks and their power, Colossi do much better in choke points. But if you have a really good unit variety and you've got all those units out in the middle of the map, they can all really utilize that DPS properly. And a Protoss army, the Protoss Death Ball as they call it, is one that really requires several different units to be firing at once. So we'll see here who's going to take the first game on Crossfire. Will it be TricKsteR? Will it be TheBest? We'll find out in just a minute here at the GSL Super Tournament.
GSL TricKsteR versus TheBest for you.
All right, over here at the top right, a Protoss player of many IDs. This time he's using the ID. He goes by
GSL TricKsteR.
On the team TSL. Shot of him now. He's taking a nap. Getting himself motivated. Now over here at the bottom left, a Terran player. He thinks he's better than everyone else.
TheBest for you.
Shot of him. Looks pretty calm. Doesn't look as happy as he did just a moment ago. Now, Crossfire is a map where almost every Terran versus Protoss I've ever seen on this map, whether it's not for the GSL or another tournament that uses this map, Terran player will do either a 1-base or 2-base timing attack to really pressure the first nexus of the Protoss using siege tanks, bunkers, some sort of containment. I talk about this a lot in my cast, but the map architecture here, in the middle of the map, really lends itself to siege tanks being powerful. You can put the siege tanks at the top of the ramp. It's very difficult for melee units like Zealots to run up and do damage to them. And Zealots and Immortals, of course, are the two units that do extremely well against siege tanks. Because, first of all, Zealots close distance very quickly, and siege tanks can't attack melee units when they're attacking them. And in addition, Zealots don't take bonus damage from siege tanks, and they've got a lot of hit points. And of course, Immortals, for obvious reasons, destroy siege tanks. For those of you guys who don't really follow StarCraft, Immortals have a hardened shield that absorbs attacks, makes them reduce to 10 points of damage while they have shields. And they also do 50 damage per shot to armored units like siege tanks. So they're pretty strong. And if you fight an Immortal versus a siege tank one-on-one, the Immortal just crushes the siege tank. But it's very difficult to get all of those units in the right place. When your opponent's got bunkers at the top of the ramp, he's got siege tanks, he's just kind of slowly moving down the ramp, because every time you want to attack him, you can just pull back to those bunkers. If you commit, you may break through, but if you lose all of your units, it becomes very, very difficult to come back. It's a slippery slope from there. Quick second gas for TheBest. Gonna make that factor here pretty soon. TricKsteR actually hiding a pylon over the left side of the map. Hasn't taken his second gas yet. That pylon may just be kind of an investment for later. Since he didn't leave his probe at that pylon, I thought perhaps he would hide a Twilight Council and a Dark Shrine, but he has left that pylon over there. So more likely he just wants to make it. He's got a scouting probe out there. Why not make a pylon over there where it can't be targeted really, and it'll spot dropships later. It looks like he plans on doing a 1-gate expand at this point, unless he wants to make a liar out of me. Got his probe actually up at the top of the map, checking for proxies, making sure his opponent isn't hiding cloaked banshees or anything like that. Wants to be very map aware. Checking everywhere with that probe. TricKsteR's got eyes in the back of his head. It's like your second grade teacher. It's like, how'd you know it was me? It's like, I've got eyes in the back of my head. Some of them really did. And actually, TricKsteR is going to be a TricKsteR and take the Nexus at the north part of the map, not at his natural slope. He's hiding an expansion. It's not a gold base, but it's a hidden, basically 1-gate expansion. He's going to power up, add some more gateways behind this. Now, this is pretty sneaky, and it can work out quite well. The problem with this build is that if your opponent goes quick cloak banshees, you do kind of struggle to deal with that. TheBest already has his factory up, producing one of those siege tanks. And like I said, it's very, very common to see an early attack. Siege tanks, bunkers, attacking that natural. And I really like this by TricKsteR because of how popular that strategy is, and because it's so hard to hold that natural against that timing push, he's actually taken a base that's far away, that when those attacks come, it's got a huge wide open area where you can defend, use the Zealots properly, those tanks have to walk a long way across the map. There's no real easily defensible position they're walking across, and he even has that one pylon to spot for units coming over in that direction. So TricKsteR actually, this is a risky strategy, but he's playing it out in such a way that I think really fits this map. Back at the main base of TheBest, you do see that Starport is producing a Banshee, so he's got that tech lab on both the factory and the Starport. Looks like TricKsteR wants to put some pressure forward as he transfers his probes. Can't do that because there's actually no bunker at the top of the ramp, and because Stalkers not only outrun but outrange Marines. He's going to go for it here. Zealot can't really do any damage, he's walled off, but he does pick off a few Marines. Trades one Zealot. Uh-oh, the second Zealot getting a little overzealous. Trying to run up that ramp. Does have to back away. Now, TheBest is not researching Cloak. Just wants to use this Banshee for scouting and harassment purposes. He's going to join it up with his main force, and actually he's going to swap that pylon right away, which is somewhat of a win for both players. He does take out that pylon, but slows down the Banshee and also lets TricKsteR know that the Banshee is coming in general. Robotics is about a third of the way done. He basically has to get the robotics, because if he doesn't, Banshees go Cloak. He's in a lot of trouble. Does kind of slow down how many units he can power out right at this moment. And actually looks like TricKsteR may try to stop this Banshee from killing the pylon, but not going to work. Does get a few shots off on it. Better than nothing. Making his first pylon at that base. Very important to keep a pylon at all of the bases that you make as a Protoss player, because if you don't, someone attacks it, what are you going to do? You can't walk your units all the way over there. If you have that pylon there, it's really easy to defend, because basically, however many warp gates you don't have on cooldown, you can have that many units there to defend immediately if you've got a pylon there. So, tip for the newbies, if you try to hide an expansion like this, which I don't recommend at low level, by the way, but if you do, build a pylon over there. Make sure that you can defend it if you need to. This Banshee taking a lot of hits, actually not going to be able to do really any harassment. Kill the pylon, kill the probe, but that's it for this Banshee. Here comes a level attack. Nice force fields. But there are so many siege tanks moving forward here. The question is, does he have siege mode yet? Indeed he does. Sorry, the production tab cut off on my screen. And this attack is going to come up right to the top of this location. But TricKsteR is there. He's got force fields. Actually, he's out of force field energy because he used those force fields some energy for early. Oh, he just had enough for another force field, but he died. Siege mode is done. And it looks like TheBest is like, oh, you have no natural here. I might just kind of siege up and sneak into your main. He's going to siege up at the bottom. Slowly getting his tanks and Marines in here. Doesn't want to get force fielded out. He's going to make a bunker. Now, TricKsteR does have one Immortal, which is going to be really important at dealing with these tanks. The Marines trying to tank a lot of damage, cutting down those Marines very quickly. The Zealots running in. And it looks like the Marines did tank enough damage for the siege tanks to stay alive. And in fact, he lost that Immortal, and that is huge. Not having an Immortal out to defend this is so problematic. He's trying to Chrono Boost out another one. Those gateways are under fire. Looks like he may start to lose some of his production facilities here. He's got 5 gates, well now 4 as that one dies. TricKsteR does get a few more forces out. He's going to go for it again, even bringing some probes this time, targeting down the siege tanks with the Immortal. He may have enough here, but the Marines are targeting down the Immortal, and the last siege tank does stay alive. The bunker is still being built. The SCV hasn't been killed. More reinforcements are running in here. And it looks like TricKsteR going to target down that siege tank, but losing a lot of Stalkers in the process, and the bunker finishes. That's really bad. TricKsteR is on cooldown at all 4 of his warp gates. He can try to make an Immortal. He is going to try to make an Immortal, but there's so many units here. Whenever that Immortal pops out, it can just be targeted down so quickly. And basically TheBest can just continue to bunker forward. He's actually going to go ahead and target down that robotics facility immediately. Does not want any more Immortals to come out. There's not a whole lot that TricKsteR can do about it, because if he tries to move forward and attack those units, the siege tanks are going to hit his own, and he can just back up, and he does lose the robotics. Units trying to run forward, and it looks like TricKsteR is pretty dead. He does have that other base up at the top left, but if he loses all of his production facilities, there's no way that he can, really come back from this. This gateway is starting to take a ton of damage. Another siege tank does arrive to help out. Going to target down one of those gateways. That leaves TricKsteR at just 3 gates. He hasn't even started rebuilding anything at that other base he has at the top left, so that's basically just a mining base. He's getting money from that. But as soon as he loses everything here, he's not going to have any units to defend when TheBest comes and finds him. TheBest doesn't know about that base yet, though. And it looks like that second to last gateway will fall, and TheBest continues to move forward with his bunkers. TricKsteR trying to remake some of his gateways. The Cybernetic core is under fire. It looks like he will target down the siege tank, but he's losing so much in the process. Probes coming out. And you know, it looks like he may hold this, but I just don't think so. He's just lost so much. He doesn't have any more production, so as these units fall, he won't be able to reinforce. The bunker is taken out, and he's moving forward again, trying to target the tank, but just too many units. You try to move forward and target the tank, but there are a ton of Marines that are going to take so much damage from those Marines. A pylon goes down, that will unpower that gateway if it ever finishes. TricKsteR's looking pretty dead indeed. He's trying his best to hold on. TricKsteR has held some crazy all-ins in the past, but I don't think he's going to hold this one. Doesn't have any more tricks in his bag. The Stalker's going to run forward again, wants to snipe that tank. He has started gateway production at that top left base location, but he doesn't have a Cybernetics core anymore. Nice control of these Stalkers, though, I have to admit. He's doing the best he could, given the circumstances. As you can see, a shot of those gateways being rebuilt there at the top base now. That Nexus is being targeted down, and once the Nexus falls, TricKsteR's going to be at just that one mining base. Just doesn't have any production right now, whereas TheBest can keep making units. TheBest actually does have a command center back at home, is making it into an orbital right now. May lose a Banshee. Does lose that Banshee, but that's not that significant in the grand scheme of things. And that Nexus may fall. Looks like it's going to fall. Does fall. And now TheBest can just kind of leave. He doesn't even need to push forward anymore. And in fact, it looks like these Stalkers are going to try to do their last-ditch attempt to kill the rest of these siege tanks, but it will not work. GG. There's a shot of TheBest. It's like, I am the best. He actually looks extremely emotionless right now. Crossfire, though, you know, I talked a little bit about it yesterday, and someone gave me some stats about the map saying, well, you know, it's actually not that imbalanced statistics-wise, but I think that siege tanks are so strong on that map that you have to assume that they're coming, and I think that TricKsteR did. I think he knew that was what the timing push was coming, so that's why he didn't take his natural expansion. But as it turned out, even so, he just didn't have enough units yet. He powered up a little bit, but he didn't have enough units out. He couldn't hold the ramp, and then once those units get up into your ramp, it gets pretty tough. And there's Choya Foyu, the coach of his team, and of course, he actually advanced earlier this week, defeating a Zerg player. I can't remember off the top of my head. Shot of our studio, the player booths. About to get a shot of me. No, not going to get a shot of me because I can stop TricKsteR. So, the next map is actually Xel'Naga Caverns, which is an extremely balanced map, and a map that I think Xel'Naga Caverns may be the most balanced map in the ladder pool, for example, and in the tournament pools as well. It's why it's been used for so long, since the first season of the GSL. I remember Tasteless and Artosis casting on Xel'Naga Caverns, not really knowing anything about it, making all sorts of jokes about the caverns. We've all grown to love it. If Xel'Naga Caverns ever gets removed from the map pool, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know what I'll say. It's actually the most commonly played ladder map because it's the least vetoed map out there, so it's a little stat for you guys. Just look that up. Players play on it most often, so it's the map that everyone has the most practice on. Whether you're laddering, you're practicing with your teammates, it's in every tournament ever. Great map made by Blizzard. So, will TricKsteR tie up the series, or will TheBest close it out with another awesome timing push? We'll find out here in just a second, here at the GSL Super Tournament.